I need to get used to this. Steven's talking. Armand's talking.
All right.
Steven's talking.
It's gonna be a spicy one.
No. We're live.
You're joking.
You're live, Armand.
And for that reason, I'm out.
501.
Here we are. I'm running the 1s and 2s today.
Okay, I linked it.
Okay.
Dude, we're live. You're trying to link up your Friend.tech?
Yeah.
This is scintillating.
Armand, you need to use a microphone.
Oh, yeah. Get your mic on.
Armand's setting up his Friend.tech.
It's completely broken.
Oh wow!
Onboarding. I've signed in 3
Wow.
times.
This is gonna be a spicy one.
This is going to be a great
I've
one.
signed in
Gonna
3
be a
times.
spicy
I just
one.
logged into the Twitter part too. It's still broken.
Steven, your shares are up 3x since we bought.
Yeah?
I'm dumping.
This is hilarious. How do you guys not see what's going to happen here?
All right.
Go
All right, let's
live.
Welcome, everybody.
Let's put a
to
pin in
the
that. Let's put a
Alfalfa
pin in that.
podcast. Got to lurk in a little bit while Armand sets up his Friend.tech.
I
We
didn't
are
like
four
that.
entrepreneur and investor friends seeking the edge in money and meaning. We are Eric Johansson, Armand Asadi, Steven Cesaro. I am Nick Urbani. This week we are covering Friend.tech.
Friend.tech.
And we'll talk a little other money stuff. We got some car buying alpha, a little market update. But we're interested in discovering is this social media app, crypto app? I don't know what we call it. Is it the thing that takes crypto mainstream? We got some strong opinions today, so should be a fun talk.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
It's dead in the water.
Support the podcast. If you like, have some fun. Put your comment on the screen by donating. Donations $9 or more go up on the screen on the YouTube. And go to streamlabs.com/alfalfapod. Use the PayPal link. And shout out to Hookem. Last week, donated $250 for the bar tab in
Amazing.
permissionless.
That a baby.
Big
Huge.
guy. Yeah, we'll definitely use it.
Absolute
That's for
goat.
sure. We will be at permissionless. Steven and I will be there. We're going to throw a little happy hour, a little fun time for everyone to get together in person. I know there's a big crew, got an Alfalfa house going for the conference, which will probably be the party house. Maybe
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
throw a little dinner shindig there.
Pickleball tournament.
Pickleball tournament, all the fun things.
I'll be bringing my paddle.
Another way you can support the pod, send out your favorite episode. Could be this one to a friend or a family member. Let them know where the edge is, where the alpha is. And then check out all the links are at alfalfapod.com, Twitter, YouTube. If you're listening in, subscribe on the YouTube. We're live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. PST. And we have a little smorgasbord of drinks
Yeah.
on the table
Yeah.
today.
Courtesy of whose turn this week?
Well, it's mine, but they
Yeah.
were donated through Carne Asada Chris. He
Very
had some
nice.
gems lying at the house. So one is probably easy to move into. One's a little rough. The first one is a Don Julio Reposado, 1942
Yeah,
Reposado.
I think I did this backwards. I went straight for the heat.
Oh, you
yeah,
did?
Don't do that.
Yeah.
So the 1942 is usually a Añejo,
Mm-hmm.
extra Añejo.
Yeah.
Or just Añejo. This is the Reposado, and we cracked it open because I've never had it before, so we'll try it out. And then we have a Weller's Bourbon,
yeah.
which is
Foolproof.
full proof. I think it's 114 proof.
Yeah.
So use with
You're
caution,
going to get
boys.
spicy, Capitan.
Yeah. I'm gonna start slurring by the end of this. The old slur.
I love slurring Armand. He's
Yeah?
the best Armand.
Yeah. I like it too.
We're missing Jordan this week. Our producer, Jordan.
So we got you on the 1s and 2s.
So I'm on the 1s and 2s.
Hell
And
yeah.
I apologize in advance if I lose track of the cameras.
Yeah, we miss you, Jordan.
We got some lurkers in the house. Thank you, lurkers, for unlurking yourself.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
Taza,
The
Poog.
second step is stepping into the Discord at alfalfapod.com and giving us an introduction.
We got Adam in last
Dude,
week. That was
we've
a good
had
convert.
some good lurker conversion.
Huge pull. Huge
conversion
pull.
rate. Well,
Yeah.
Adam was very active, non-lurker in
Yeah.
the YouTube, but he went YouTube to Discord conversion. I love that.
He's watching Donald Trump right
Love
now.
that.
But Poog Lagoon, thanks for showing up. Basil, Pilgard, Hookem,
Taza.
Calcium, as always. Tunsky, I know you're in there. So thank you all for joining the chat. That's where the extra alpha is. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Highly encourage you guys, if you're listening to the podcast, join on YouTube, watch the chat replay as we go through the pod. All right, let's thank our sponsor, ZBiotics.
Yes.
Zbiotics.com/alfalfa for 15% off. Did you guys take your ZBiotics today?
I did.
Did good.
Sure
sir.
did.
Good boys. We're going to
Yes.
have to re-up before permissionless.
Took a lot of it this weekend in Mexico.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Tell us. What were you doing in Mexico?
A lot of drinking.
Good. And you survived throughout the whole
Yeah.
trip?
I did. I had to pull the ripcord and get home early before the freaking hurricane, which I did not know was happening, by the way.
First of all, that was a rug pull.
First
I mean,
of all,
the
yeah,
hurricane
no,
was
Sorry, the
It
hurricane.
was a light,
I thought my
light rain.
house
It
would
was,
be
it was a
destroyed.
hurricane. We had an earthquake, too.
we did have an earthquake in the middle of it.
Was were you working out? Were you doing other things, or did ZBiotics kind of like
I did play pickleball at this random Mexico City park with like a basketball hoop where there were no nets and people were playing soccer on concrete with no nets on the goals and there was just graffiti everywhere. It was quite the experience.
Picklers
actually.
took over that too, huh?
Yeah. yeah, we did.
So we took our ZBiotics before the pod. ZBiotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic. So you take it before you drink and kind of avoid that shitty morning after that you usually have from a night of drinking or a day of drinking. It breaks down a byproduct called acetaldehyde that your body produces when you drink alcohol and breaks it down so you don't feel like crap in the morning. PhD microbiologist developed it, so thank you, scientists. Great job. I'm glad we're focusing on our
The
efforts
most
that really
important
impact.
things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it impacts me quite a bit.
Are we in touch? Have we heard back?
Yeah, we're going to see if we can set up an in-person interview in San Francisco.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, if anyone
Yeah, shout out
that's
to
listening knows of a podcast studio in San Francisco that we can use, we're on the hunt for one because it would be fun to have Zach, the CEO of ZBiotics, and for us to go up to him. Yeah, we need 5 seats.
That's the.
And it's got to be cool. 'cause
yeah.
It's got to be fun.
Yeah.
It's funny. I showed it to my buddy in Mexico, and the first thing he goes is like, "Oh, they were in Y Combinator 7 years ago."
Yep,
Yeah. I
was
that's
like,
right.
I was like,
Yeah.
"How do you know
I think,
that?"
I think
Yeah.
more recently, I think it was like 2018 or something.
It's a very long incubation.
I think they were 2018.
So anyway, it's worked for 4 of us. Try it out yourself. Cbiotics.com/alfalfa. All right. So we got some bigger topics to talk about, but I have seen the cars in the parking lot change recently in the office here.
Car stuff?
Yeah, and I realized that Armand's kind of like a level 9,000 car trader.
No, my stepbrother is level 9,000.
This is very Persian of you, by the
Yeah.
way. It's on brand.
I was gonna say that. Wait, you're one of those guys who like they get the car at the auction and they're like, "Yeah, I get to drive around these cars and then I sell them and make money." I knew like a bunch. I knew a bunch of those guys when I moved here.
Haven't gone that far.
Oh.
So, yeah, like growing up in Sacramento, it's just a different life, right? And, the idea of like going to a dealership and all this, we were teenagers, just like buying and selling cars, racing cars. Like one week we'd have an Integra, the next week it'd be like another souped
Integra.
up car. Oh, I want the Type R this week, or I
that's
want a
cool.
Camaro.
You know what I had in
Camaro.
high school? I drove a 1990 Ford Taurus station wagon.
Nice. Was
It
that your first
handled
car?
like a German tank.
Yeah, we all start somewhere. I
ridiculous.
started with a 93 Civic. 5-speed, though.
Same.
Ripped it
Mine was
up.
I would
automatic.
have
Ripped
killed a
it
man.
up.
But it
for
had
that
all
car.
Tesla lights at least 5 horsepower.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and then you had to have the 12-inch subs in the back, cruising through Sacramento. But at that time, I began to learn the process of like buying private party. And then as time went on and I became an adult and you look around and your friends are all going to, the dealership to buy a car. First of all, I think the key alfalfa about all of this is like buying a car new has to be one of the dumbest financial decisions you can make.
Agreed.
Yeah, now.
I think everybody knows that the moment you drive off the lot, you've lost 20%. And I think in general, a car is a terrible purchase. Like a car in general, not only does it lose tremendous value over time, but you have the insurance, you have the gas. If it's not an electric vehicle, you have all the maintenance that comes with it. And at the end of the day, it's a freaking
It's liability.
It's a huge liability. But you got to drive.
Gotta drive.
You got to drive unless you're in like New York
Especially
City.
in SoCal.
Yeah, unless you're in New York City, San Francisco, major city, Rome, you got to drive. So then you're faced with the decision of what to buy. And I think that if you're buying a newer car, if you want a newer car, you can get some incredible deals. You don't get the customization. You don't get the exact, package you wanted. But if you're patient enough, you can find it. So you can find a car that's a year or two old and do this. Now, in general, though, you would have to go to a dealership to do something like that. But if you look private party, and if you learn how to buy and sell private party, you save a ton more money. Like a ton more.
I always get worried though, because like private party, you don't know, have they been taking care of the car? Is it like pre-checked? I like the certified used cars. So do you have a way to, I guess, ensure that you're not going to buy something that's going to cost you $3,000?
So when they
3
sell you a
weeks later?
certified used car, and you've done this, what do they tell you? Like, what do they say if something goes wrong?
I mean, if something goes wrong, I don't know if there's anything additional. Sometimes there is like the warranty. A warranty.
Which usually needs to be purchased.
Certified,
Right.
baby. You feel
Yeah.
good about it. It's like a
Certified.
certic audit.
Like, I'm wondering,
crypto.
is this just branding?
Marketers get
Because-
sold by other marketers.
That's
Let me just.
exactly what it is.
So
I don't know. They checked all the bolts. They tightened them. It sounds nice.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, like,
and I
whack
think
it a
this
couple
is,
times.
This is
You're good.
this is the alpha. It's like if you can step out of that world of like what appears like safety and realize that actually they're selling you a car that they don't give a fuck about. They bought from an auction. All they had to do to buy that car at the auction is see if the ignition turns on, and that's all they're allowed to do. They're not allowed to drive it. They're not allowed to do anything at these auctions. And generally, it's just quick bid, move on, next car, take a look at it, and that's it. You get a peek, no drive, nothing. You don't know how anything's working, and it's you're buying as is. By the time it gets to you, most of these shops have like a small, they have one guy on staff that can like take a look at the car and fix something major or more like hide something major. If there's a clink clink happening, you buy used cars, it's a huge scam, right? So once they sell you that car, it's yours. And unless you buy the warranty, which is in and of itself a huge scam as well, like those warranties they sell you at a used car dealership is a huge scam. That doesn't cover most things you think it's going to end up covering. It's just like every other type of insurance. Whereas, if you purchase this car yourself, private party, you know exactly who you're buying it from. So I'll give you like what I did with the credit cards. I was like, here's my like steps or my tips or whatever. I'll try to do that for
We call it
this.
the alpha here.
Yeah. I'll try to do that for this. Like, first of all, here are the negatives. Okay, you have to deal with people. You have to deal with like random shitty people that you meet on the internet.
So out.
And it can be so annoying.
Steven said he's out.
Yeah, you're definitely out.
Can you think of anything I'm less cut out for, by the way?
No, actually, this is definitely one of the worst things you could do for yourself.
Oh yeah, somebody would be like,
Yeah.
it's $9,000 and it's fine, and they'd look at me and I'd be like, all right, I'll take it.
Yeah, your UI is not built for this kind of interaction.
Like, I don't want to be rude and haggle with you. I'll be,
Oh man, that's a good question about taxes. But first things first. It's like you're dealing with people. People are weird. They're going to give you a hard time. You're generally these days in the U.S. reaching out on Facebook Marketplace. Whoa, Bankless in the house. What up, fam?
Oh, hey, Bankless.
oh, GM.
In the chat, I should say. And you're checking Facebook Marketplace. I think most of the action is on Facebook Marketplace. Craigslist and all that kind of stuff is kind of dead. The inventory is low as well, but if you're patient, you will find something good. Next stage is like, who am I buying from? How long have they had it for? First thing I do, I ask for the VIN. In California, I believe you're required to have a vehicle history report when you sell the car now. So that's like a Carfax. There's actually a website at the DMV that lists out all the different sites that you can get a vehicle history report that is valid. And again, it's required. It's also required for the seller to do a smog within 90 days. So if you're buying the car from this person, it passed smog as well. And if they haven't done smog, you can also now legally require them, hey, before we do this transaction, do the smog, make sure everything's good. So you have these checks in place, and then you get to meet the guy or the girl, and you're like, okay, what kind of a person is this? Like, do you have your service records? Like, which shop did you take it to when it had a problem? Do you have the records? The dealers never have that stuff. They never have anything. They're just like, this is the car. Here it is. So I like that because a lot of the times you can find these gems. Like, you guys remember my last car?
Yeah, the Mercedes.
I sold that, right? But like, it was an absolute gem. You know, it was like this 2001 SL500 convertible.
SL500, bro.
Yeah,
Very Persian. Very
just saying it is so makes me feel warm inside.
So the Mercedes two-door coupe convertible is not family friendly. Is that why you got rid of that?
Yeah, it's not family friendly. Rumi's not gonna. Mushi was having some trouble there too. But it was just something I always wanted to experience. So I bought it, drove it for a couple years, and sold it at a profit as well. So we haven't even gotten to the price part yet, right? Like the deals you're getting, it's negotiable. So Steven's of course out for that reason, but I'm way in. I'm like, okay, you get to meet the person, you get to like rub shoulders a little bit, you get to know them, and the next thing you know, it's like you're talking and you're getting to know them, and you know.
But wait,
yeah,
do you meet them at at a place where they can actually check the car?
Yes. So what I do, what was that? What I do is I do what's called a PPI every time I purchase a car. It's called a pre-purchase inspection. So what you do is you kind of get an idea of the car you want. Ideally, you already have a mechanic or you find a mechanic and you hit up the mechanic and you say, hey, can you do a PPI for this BMW tomorrow? He goes, great. Yes, I can. It'll be $100, usually about $100 to $150. You meet the seller at the mechanic, drive the car. You like the car? Great. Do the PPI. PPI takes an hour. They check everything, comprehensive report.
How much does that cost?
$100 to $150.
And you pay for that?
Yes.
Okay.
I tell the seller I will pay for that.
Yeah.
I have no problem paying $150 for peace of mind when I'm going to buy a car that's, of course, thousands of dollars. And if I have to walk away because there was a huge mechanical issue, no problem. Or huge mechanical issue uncovered, hey, man, like, you didn't tell me.
Do you wolf them and like walk away regardless of what's found?
I've never ran into an issue. I don't use the PPI to negotiate the price.
All right.
And I tell them, like, don't worry, this is not about me pushing the price down. This is about my peace of mind. I want to know what work is required on this car if I'm going to purchase this car, or something that might come due soon or whatever it might be. So it gives everybody peace of mind. Now, if something major was wrong with the car, then I have two options: walk away, or go, yo, you got to give me like $1,000 off because, you know, whatever,
right,
depending on what the work is. But then you walk away, full peace of mind. You tell them, you bring the title, pink slip, you sign. Here's the cash or a cashier's check, and you go home.
Are we talking like 10% discount to like a used car on a dealership, or more?
Way more.
More?
So look at the other way. Here's how I price the car. How I know I'm getting a good deal. So you go to Kelley Blue Book. You say, what's my car's value?
Yeah.
You go through that process with the VIN that you got. I also like to use a site called vincheck.info, which is a free version of one of those vehicle history reports, like a Carfax. It gives you most things. Did this car get in an accident? Is it salvage? Of course, you want to make sure you watch out for that. And, you know, all these other checks. How many owners has it had? So you use VinCheck info and Kelley Blue Book. You find the value at the good level for Kelley Blue Book with the VIN. Now, and you click on private party, not trade-in value, private party value. So you're looking to be at around what the average private party value is for good for that car. Knowing that if you want to sell this car in the future, you're probably going to get the shitty trade-in value.
Yeah.
Trade-in value is always lower.
It's always way lower. So if you want to sell your own car, what do most people do? They walk into a dealer, they go, what will you give me? Or they go to Carfax. I like to use Carvana and Shift because they're paying more.
Yeah, they're negative EBITDA. I love
these
selling
other
cars
guys.
to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're trying to
That's how you know they're giving you a good
that's
price.
how
they're
you know.
trying to beat Carfax. So selling the car, I don't sell private party because for 5% less, I can sell to one of these automated just come pick up the car guys, and I don't have to deal with people on the selling side.
That sounds great.
Because the selling side sucks.
Yeah.
Right? The buying side, at least I'm a little more in control. The selling side, you have to deal with the worst.
Right.
The worst of the worst. So you lose about 5% because Shift and Carvana and a couple others, if you look them up, you just compare the rates, right? You type in the VIN, I'm ready to sell my car, which, by the way, this is also selling your car, Alfalfa. That's the way you should sell. And if you happen to be in Southern California, there's one called Car Trackers that gives really good prices. So I'm trying to be at a price that's close to that private party good value. And I also, if I really, like, I usually will also go check how much I can sell it for. And if I can sell it for close to what I'm buying it for or more, then I buy it. I think that's a good deal. So that's how I look at and evaluate pricing in general.
I've also heard if you got a buddy who's got a dealer's license, they can check the auction numbers. And like if you're looking to buy a car, that getting as close to the auction price is like the floor price for that car. That's a good little, if you have that resource to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, the savings versus walking into a dealer. So, obviously not financial advice and don't do anything we ever tell you to do. But like when you buy that car private party and you take it to the DMV, they'll ask you how much you bought it for. So,
What, you go lower?
No, I didn't say to do that.
Okay, but if you did go lower, what's the benefit?
That's the tax you're paying on it.
Oh.
So you can save a lot on taxes based on the price that you buy it for.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
So that's a lot. Like a lot. And when
Wink,
you
wink.
go into that dealership, you're paying not the private party price. You're paying like probably 25% on top. I mean, minimum 25% on top, maybe 30% plus the taxes, plus everything else that they might try to sell to you, plus all the shit that's going to go wrong with it that you don't know about because you didn't get to do a PPI. So,
Eric, how old is your car you're driving? I think I'm up there.
I think my car is old enough to vote. I don't know if it's old enough to drink yet.
Mine's 13. Yours is what? 20?
Probably 20.
I think that's the real alfalfa. Buy your car and just fucking
I love
drive
it
on it
forever.
as long
I
as
love my
possible.
car.
I drove my one before until I drove it in for a tune-up to the dealership, and it didn't leave.
Your opportunity cost is ETH. So
And then the guy there just sold me like a free car, and it was great. Anyway,
Hard boys.
I won't harp on
Thank
that.
you, Armand.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was
A lot
great.
of people worry about like, I don't know how to evaluate the car. I don't want to deal with this or that. It's all really easy. It's one of those things like you do one time. If you don't know what to do, talk to ChatGPT. Have
I
it
think
walk
the
you through the
PPI part I
process.
made bigger in my head. Just meet me
Oh,
at the
yeah.
dealership.
Meet me at the
or
dealership.
the
At
the mechanic. Cool.
Can I just say, it felt so authoritative having you tell me that. Like, I believed every word
Let me
you
ask
said.
you something. If I had said it like this,
It would have quadrupled
Yeah.
my. Yeah, I would have
was
been like,
expecting
wow.
gold chains and
Yeah.
unbuttoned.
Yeah, I
you
wish you
want
had
car?
buttons to unbutton.
I'll give you a
while
car
said
by
it.
3 o'clock. I don't know if Matt wants me to say this in an accent, but I see it in quotes. So this car was gifted to me, Mr. DMV. Listen, the price is zero. My uncle says no price. Just your treat, my son.
Oh God, I
don't
wish
know why,
I was
but when I
Persian
saw
sometimes.
Mr. DMV, it just Mr. DMV wanted to come out. So-
Yeah. All right, boys. Let's keep on the money topic. I want to talk a little about the markets because we've seen a little dip in the stonks market. We've also seen a little dip in the crypto
Not
market.
today, brother.
Not today. So Nvidia, we had a nice little pump today, and then Nvidia reported earnings. They crushed their earnings
Double
and then
pump.
raised forecasts. So bull market continue now. Can we just?
Yeah, did you see the PMIs this morning?
No, what was that?
I was short when the PMIs came out. By the way, don't ever put on a position before the economic data comes out.
That's a
like
red folder.
Okay, but they usually come out at 8:30 New York, and I didn't look at it, and I was like, whatever. And then I checked it, and it said like 10 o'clock, and I was like, oh fuck. And then 1 minute later, just green candle like straight up my butt. Because
I thought that green candle was going to reverse. It did not
no,
reverse.
well the PMIs came in cold, which I guess translates to economy slowing, which means Jerome is not going to light us on fire
Yeah,
this
so
week.
just for everyone, it's a purchasers
Index,
manufacturers index.
yeah.
It's like a good signal of a broader business cycle. So are we getting more purchases for things or less? I think the index is 0 to 100, so like above 50 is usually good, growing. Below 50, not good. declining.
And because we live in an upside down Klein world, like bad data is good for asset prices because it means no more rate hikes, maybe rate cuts, because we live in a bit of a manipulated
Yeah, Eric, I
financial
want to know
system.
where your head's at. I know Steven's got some charts that we're gonna play chart DJ with.
So yeah, I wanna look at these charts because what I care about are primarily two things: the price of ETH and the price of Coinbase right now.
Okay.
So Steven, I hope you have.
I've got you covered on one of those.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And what I'm looking for there is like right now we had a pullback. Not today, but like broadly, there's like a pullback over the last week or so. So I started implementing that strategy that I described, a couple months ago, where I was like T-bills, but then when the T-bills, they'll just make income. But when I'm ready to like reallocate that into growth, I will. I did that over the past few days, like putting into ETH, putting into Coinbase. That was my first foray into that move.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at particularly the Coinbase chart, and I can't wait for you to show us. But like I'm thinking that there might be some room a little lower, or I can get a little greedier. But I thought now is a good time to like deploy.
I've been, I think like 4 or 5 episodes ago, we talked about, assign your probability of like up only from here, down lower, nuke, and then allocate your portfolio accordingly. So like I was thinking like 20, 25%, maybe 30% up only from here. So I put, over the last like 4 weeks, put 20% of the cash to work, mainly just ETH and a little bit of Coinbase. So like I'm somewhat in the market. One of the things that keeps coming up in my head is that we all know that liquidity over a long time horizon, like, kind of moves the market up or down. And I keep going back to like, when would the Fed inject liquidity, or when would like global liquidity really start to rise, and where you start to get a really big bull run? And I keep coming to the conclusion that they would only do it if there's something wrong.
Something severe.
Something wrong. And in case something's wrong, price would go down. So like I'm kind of stuck in this thought loop, and I kind of want to break out of it because I might be too narrow-minded in this. There is like a little sliver of hope in the soft landing scenario where like, instead of something bad happening, we just realize that real interest rates are too high, it's too restrictive, and they just kind of bump it down like half a percentage point, a percentage point, and they kind of like really thread the needle here. But I don't know, you're in kind of the bull case. You've been buying for quite a long time. Can you help me out of my thought loop of we need liquidity for prices to really start to move?
Yeah.
And we need something bad to happen.
I'm also on Team Nick, so please help me out too.
I mean, I haven't bought stocks this year. I missed that train, but I bought a lot of ETH in January, and then I was very vocally buying a lot more ETH after the USDC Coinbase crash in the spring. And I actually bought ETH again the other day at 1,700, which I thought was a good price, but it went lower. But I think it's still a good price, and I've really been putting my ass on the line on Twitter. Seem to be the only person bullish.
Should I sell your Friend.tech shares
Yeah,
now?
maybe.
Okay.
I'm going to look really dumb if this just crashes from
No,
here.
didn't you know I guys want them on my phone?
Yeah, so my generalized thesis is that like we went max panic porn last year, and we were pricing in just the death of the world.
So far.
And the idea that like the Fed has to cut like in order for everything to go up isn't true in my opinion. Like all that has to happen is they just have to not raise anymore, or maybe cut like micro amounts, like a quarter point here, a quarter point there, and then the economy doesn't crash. And I think if that happens, like this has happened historically in the past where before you have like an absolute nuke in the markets, you have this sort of mega run-up period right about when the Fed pauses. You get this like temporary kind of Goldilocks thing where everything looks fine and the Fed takes their foot off the brakes and the market's like, woo! And then something happens and then it all comes tumbling down. The thing that I think you're not rating properly is just like how much money the government's printing. I think fiscal is so much more important than monetary right now. Fiscal being like the politicians are just spending
Inflation
tons of
Reduction
money.
Act, the infrastructure bill.
Totally.
Like the writing's on the wall. Like the dollar and all fiat currencies, I think in general, are just sort of dead.
I mean, you're right. We are running like a 2 sigma in terms of like fiscal deficit. So they're just spending money.
Sigma.
But what needs to happen in order to fund that is they have to issue a lot of debt, right? And that sucks liquidity out of the system. So does that square with you, or negligible in your calculation?
No, not really. I'm like really left curving this right now. Like I was really analytical about all this shit like 9 months ago, and now I'm not anymore. I think that like if you zoom way out on everything as well, and this is true of the dollar as well. Like if you zoom way out, you're like, oh, this is a gigantic fucking uptrend, and like that what you thought was a bubble last year actually doesn't really look like that much of a bubble if you zoom out far enough. And I like I said, I just think the writing's on the wall with fiat, and our government officials are going to do a particular thing. It's very obvious what they're going to do. Nobody's going to take any hard medicine. We're just going to print. There's an election year next year, which I feel like people aren't talking about enough. Like I don't think Powell's going to drive everything into the ground, you know? So.
I hope you're right, bud. I hope you're right, but I do feel like the guillotine is still just hovering over our heads, and I don't know when that thing's going to drop.
I mean, you're talking about the federal government spending more money. I just keep thinking about them issuing more debt, and they've been issuing T-bills.
The federal
like,
government,
have to
the government issuing debt is like it's just like mega bullish. Like there's like 5% interest rates, and they're just paying rich people massive amounts of like interest payments, right? Those interest people just take that interest and they just buy more stocks with it, right? Like the government spending, I think like we can say over the last year, like high interest rates are stimulative in particular kinds of environments.
I find it hard to subscribe to that argument when like the reason that we had a pullback in the stock market is because rates reached such a high level that there is an alternative. And not only is it in the past, like, let's call it 13 years, when you bought a bond, you were actually negative real rates because inflation was higher than the yield that you were getting.
What was that acronym? Because there was TINA before. There is no alternative, but then it
there
switched
is
to
an Terra.
Terra
There is
a reasonable alternative.
So yeah, I mean that's the reason we've had a pullback because those rates go up. You DCF the stocks and you're like, well, they're rated lower. The multiples get re-rated, and now there is a real return on those bonds. Now that inflation's call it like 3%, they're yielding 5%. There's a 2% real yield, and you've seen in the past, like when real yields spike up, it's a good reason for a lot of investors to not go further out in the risk curve.
Yeah, particularly the ones that you're talking about who are these rich people. Like, why invest in stonks and put your money to any risk when you can just sit
the same
cozy
reason
5.5%?
you buy like 11% bonds in like emerging market, or you don't buy 11% bonds in emerging market currencies and you buy the stock market instead, right? Because like the long term, that 11% is just going to eat you alive because inflation is going to be more than that, and you need like a higher return on your capital to stay ahead of that.
I'm so not used to you thinking very long term. Usually you're trading much tighter time ranges. So this is
and
nice.
honestly, like all of this stuff to me now is like I don't feel like I have any edge here, quite frankly. I feel like there was maybe an edge when the tide was really turning and people were like super unprepared for what was going to happen. Everybody's been watching this shit for like a year and a half now, like a hawk, and doomering it. And like I think if anything, people are still like underexposed to the upside at this point. It's like the most watched crash in the history of the freaking planet, Like we had this conversation a year ago actually, and I mistimed it by like a month, unfortunately, and I got out of all my longs and I ended up being right, but just like 2 months later, so I was wrong.
No, you were wrong. You were like way. I think you were like 6 months early to that.
No, I was positioned in September, and then I puked, and then like October was basically the bottom.
So hold on, I actually remember you saying something like this. Like, imagine how much pain there would be if we like come off these off these lows, actually run up towards new highs, and then rug pull everybody again. And that's what I'm really worried about, is that like that second rug.
Yeah, I'm worried about that too, but I want to buy,
Right.
I want to buy on the way up to like S&P 6,000 or whatever.
When Nick says like, oh, you're thinking so long term, like I don't think you are. I actually think that you're thinking about this as more of like a swing, because like right now this is just like a good upturn to trade.
Yeah.
And like
I mean, I am thinking long term, but I'm mostly thinking just next few months. You want to talk about the?
Yeah. Let's. You want to pull up some charts?
Yeah,
I'm going to play Jordan here for a second. And DJ.
So I can, yeah.
So what are you showing us, Steven?
So this is like the best and worst chart, I think, right now. Well, not maybe the best and worst. Well, depending on which chart you look at.
Can we zoom
But this
in a
is
little bit?
we're looking at the dollar, the DXY, the dollar index. So we've got like a year chart pulled up right now, right? And Eric, like you trade a little bit, right? Like if you look at the 1 year chart for the dollar, like what do you see? You see,
So I mean, it's trending lower, but we're at like a local high.
yeah, you see a downtrend.
Yeah.
You see very nasty displacement to the downside, like very nasty down moves, accumulation, moves back up to lower highs, nasty move down again. Like this looks like a chart that if you were to trade it on the 5-minute timer, right, like you would be shorting this. You would you would have shorted it a few months ago, right? So when I think on like in these 1 year increments, like we're looking at multi-decades, right? This is where like my long view is coming in. Like this thing is going down.
So yeah, so when the dollar is high, like it's showing here, that would be like restrictive for risk assets. If the dollar were to go down, that would like allow stonks and crypto to pump.
Bitcoin is an inverse dollar trade.
Yeah.
Like for sure. Like if you chart Bitcoin versus the dollar, when the dollar goes up, Bitcoin goes down. When the dollar goes down, Bitcoin goes up. All this stuff about the halvening and everything, I think it's complete fucking bullshit. I think the dollar cycle tends to coincide with that. Coincidentally, I put zero stock in that. I think it's a complete meme.
Wow.
I think it's all about the dollar.
That's a hot take.
So when I'm trading
that's
crypto
on the narrow
over long
level.
time horizons, I'm really looking at the dollar, right? And I see reason to be very bullish and very bearish depending on how you look at it, right? So another thing that's interesting about this chart, if you are able to see it, is this candle has like a big spike and then a huge wick, right? So we moved up very sharply and now we've gone back down. And when we're trading, this is called a swing fail pattern. Like we actually went way above the 2017 high and then we came all the way back down and closed underneath it. So when you have a candle that like spikes way above like a very important level, but then it retraces all the way back below it and can't sustain above it, so a swing fail, that's typically very, very bearish. Like
So
you're
that tells
usually,
you that it's not a reversal of the trend. Like the trend is going to continue downward, or
well, this is a reversal, right? We went up, but this is like a huge reversal pattern.
I'm looking at long term. This is like a downtrend, and it's going to be
I'm
continuation.
talking just about the move last year. We saw
Okay.
this huge dollar spike last year.
Yeah.
We ran the 2017 high. Everybody got crazy. We actually came all the way back down, and we're underneath it now. And if you were trading this on like the 1 minute chart, you would be biased to that candle going all the way back down to the lows, which if I'm not mistaken, or what's the low on that? Like 88 cents? Like I think the dollar is going like sub 90 cents at some point. And that is going to be just mega bullish, in my opinion, not financial advice for crypto and other risk assets. If you zoom into this on like a monthly chart, here's where things get like really interesting. So earlier this year, we had this massive kind of displacement move down. That's typically a signal that like this trend is exhausted and it wants to go the other way and it's looking to go lower, right? And go lower it did. But recently, we talked about like a swing failure pattern. We had one of these on the downside just a couple weeks ago, and this is the thing that has me worried. So we traded into this like value gap on the downside here, all the way down into it, price all the way back up inside. So this is what happened, you know, but in reverse now. So although I think this chart is going lower and we're all going to make it, like from a technical perspective, you would actually expect this to be biased to going back up into that zone we broke from earlier this year. And if we trade back to 105, 106, 107 on the dollar, that's going to be really, really ugly.
Could
So
be painful.
so I'm watching this chart like a hawk right now. And if you go to like the weekly chart, like this is like a little bit in the weeds, so I'm just gonna like kind of glance over it. But when I look at the weekly chart, like it doesn't look like something to me that's just retesting and is gonna go down lower for another leg. Like it looks like it does actually have some strength going higher. Now, this doesn't mean that crypto is going to tank just because the dollar is going up, but we have had interesting moments in the past where the dollar, like 2021, for example, like late 2021, you had weeks, I think months even, where the dollar was rallying and Bitcoin was still going up. There was a divergence. And like there were savvy people who spotted that and were like, whoa, dollar's going up a lot. Bitcoin's still going up. This isn't good. And a lot of people were like, no, it's different this time. Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin did care. So what I would watch out for is like a rally for Bitcoin, like Bitcoin to the mid 30,000s, ETH to the mid 2000s. If dollar starts going up towards that zone, and like crypto is up there, like I don't think ETH has value at $2,300, $2,400 if the dollar is rallying.
So your squiggles here show the dollar moving higher through like the end of through the end of this year.
The timing is not specific in the scribble. This is just sort of where I'm biased to movement. Like price seeks liquidity. I think it took liquidity from the downside. It's now going to move to the upside. The upside in the dollar is bearish for risk assets. You don't want to be owning risk assets while the dollar's moving up. So like, although I am kind of long-term bullish, like I have this thesis that like I do think we are probably going to melt up to an extent. The timing on that's like fuzzy, and I do see this potential roadblock. So this is what I am watching, and this is what would cause me to jettison basically like all of my risk positions.
Imagine if that like the move up in the dollar toward like as we continue on weeks here, like imagine if that coincided with like other narratives too. Like imagine they delay or deny an ETF.
Yeah,
approval,
we could have a
like,
real. Or it could go the other way where the dollar is breaking up, but they release the ETF, and it actually gives you a chance to get out of Dodge,
right?
While everybody's like going euphoric and the dollar's rising. Yeah. So the last chart I had on here was like, this is like, I'm biased towards like a retrace on the dollar in the short term. So if you wanted to kind of get out of Dodge, I think you actually over the next week or two or three, if you think like this thesis is correct or you're not bullish on crypto like me, this could give you like a rally back up to the 18s in ETH or something. And you could hedge here. And I think it's kind of a smart spot to hedge because if the dollar bounces there, that could be game over.
What other charts do you have?
Okay, one more chart. Let's do one more chart. Just for the lulz. This is a super simple one. I was just looking at so I've been tweeting about how I think the Coinbase chart is like the most
give us
obvious
coin.
buy ever right now. Like, and this is like a really like I don't have any fair value gaps or order blocks or any nonsense on here. I think most people who trade a little bit are familiar with the head and shoulders pattern. You familiar with that? A bearish pattern.
Yeah, just describe it though.
A bullish pattern is the inverse head and shoulders. So the head and shoulders, you typically have like you have a hump, you have a higher hump, and then you have a lower hump. It looks like a head and two shoulders. That's
bearish.
That's everybody's favorite bearish chart pattern, right? So an inverse head and shoulders is like a dip, a lower dip, another dip back to the same height as the previous dip and not lower. And then when you break back above the neckline, that's like go time.
So
right?
here you're describing an inverse head and shoulders, if I'm seeing this correctly.
Yeah, this is an inverse head and shoulders. This is a bottoming pattern. It's kind of easy to look at, right? And another added point of so we've busted way out of that. We had a huge impulse on high volume, right? So it's definitely a breakout.
Yep.
Well, nothing's definite in this, so don't take that to the bank, please. But not only did we have that breakout, and not only are we retesting the sort of neckline of the head and shoulders, but the neckline, what is that? Is that a yearly mid-range on there on the chart, Nick? The line?
The horizontal line.
The horizontal line? Yeah. So when you look at like yearly candles, they're very significant. They're high time frame levels. Like the mid-range on a yearly chart should be a great point of support. So you have this confluence with like a yearly mid-range, a breakout of the head and shoulder, the inverse head and shoulders. We had like a 50, 60%. I think we had like a 60 or 65% retrace from the bottom, which is also a great level. So I see like this whole confluence of factors, meaning it's like a pretty good time to accumulate. I hadn't bought any since like that tweet near the bottom, and I bought some more yesterday.
So hold on, like actually I do have one more question about that chart, if you don't mind. So you have that yearly mid-range, which I like that you put that there, and we're like sort of touching on it, and you can kind of see that price is responding to that. I guess my question is, like, we had that steep run up recently. That looks to me like there's a lot of fair value gaps within that it would probably want to run those. Like, I think it'd seem reasonable. Yeah, right there as Nick's highlighting, it seems like that would be sort of ripe to like have price just run through that too, and like that wouldn't really invalidate this like yearly average range either. Like it's just, I think price probably goes down to the 60s
This is getting a little in the weeds, but it's not a given that when you have a breakout that you go back and fill all of your gaps. Like there's a concept called a breakaway gap where price breaks out, creates like a gap in value, and then never comes back and gives you an entry because it's so strong. Like Bitcoin does this a lot, right? It kind of goes up and it never retraces. It pumps, consolidates, and you're just like kind of left on the sideline. So that can happen.
I'm glad you showed that because I'm looking to get much longer coin stonk. Like I own a spot or I own a common, but you know, I think all four of us were looking at the options, like call options, leap calls.
Oh yeah,
this
we were
week.
talking before the episode. We were looking at the furthest leap, which is December 2025. We were looking at like 100-ish strike price, $30 option ish, and I don't know. What do you think about leaps in general?
Yeah, I'm thinking about
Coinbase?
buying leaps. Actually, I think there's good value in them, and I think if Coinbase executes and crypto doesn't die, like, I don't see any reason why this thing can't go over like $1,000, right? So if you buy a leap, like you're gonna do pretty well, even though they are expensive.
So Nick, go through your quick and dirty math on buying the common versus buying the leap calls.
Yeah, so we just like, I don't know, did like a little options profit and loss calculator, and on that specific option, the December 2025 100 strike price, if Coinbase gets to 500, possible, right? You're up a 7x from the current prices. So
On
let's
the
say-
common stock.
Yeah, you put in 50 grand, you know, you're at 350K. On
You're
that
not mad about it.
Yeah, not bad. On that option, you know, halfway through the expiration, you know, it's all mid 2024. If you hit that $500 price, that is now worth close to $1 million versus 350. So obviously there's leverage involved, and at that point, it might even make sense to like actually exercise the option, and it might be a better play than just selling the option off. But anyway, I was just curious, like how much more juice does this squeeze by going option over common? Because I don't know, I probably have like a higher fail rate when it comes to options than a success rate, you know, when I just buy common
Everybody
stock.
does. That's
Yeah.
why I always sell them.
Yeah,
I was actually thinking the same line of thought though, but I was thinking I want to sell the 35 strike put in order to fund the 100 strike call, and maybe I'd even put more money on the call, but like the 35 strike put is would pay you $10 per, and then you pay 30 for the 100 strike.
I like that. So it cuts your effective price of the call option to $20, let's say.
Yeah.
Because you're in $10 off selling the $30 put. And if Coinbase does get back to $35, you're probably glad.
And that
to buy
allows
it.
you to either buy more of the calls or pay less on the calls.
Right.
So, and I think if we're looking at buying this thing at 75, we'd all be happy buying it at 30.
Yeah,
35.
let's continue on in some like rough math, because Coinbase has a new revenue stream in the last month, and
yeah. I've been building a November options position actually.
oh, you have November of this
November
year?
of this quarter. I'm kind of playing like an options, like an earnings upside surprise. Kind of like a combination of like I think that Wall Street is underpricing some of this stuff from a fundamentals perspective, but mostly just like I really like the chart and I like this kind of confluence of stuff. Like because I'm pretty bullish on base and pretty bullish on Friend.tech, which I think we're going to talk about now, which is
In just a second.
the hottest thing in crypto.
I do want to talk about
Yeah.
the base fees as a
Yes.
like when do we think this will impact it? I'm curious if this is part of your quarterly thing. So I did some rough math. Last 7 days, base has earned close to $1 million in fees. It's most likely because of Friend.tech, but let's assume that stays over a quarter. You know, and I think Coinbase keeps 85% of those fees, so that's going to generate them about $10 million of revenue in the quarter. They do something like, I don't know, 600 million ish.
Not just revenue, but like pure profit, right?
I don't know. I mean, they have like a significant team that is. They have OpEx associated to this. I don't know if it's pure profit, but yeah, maybe gross margin.
It's highly
profit.
accretive. I agree with both you guys.
High
But-
margin profit.
High margin.
But
profit.
Extremely high margin.
What I'm thinking more likely is that what you'd find is that trading activity is going down. So like earnings will come in low, but they'll have this little like kicker that we know about, but I don't think Wall Street knows how to price that in effectively on the long term. Like,
yeah, but I mean, is $10 million going to move the needle on a $600 million a quarter revenue company? Or
I don't think it
maybe not?
is. I think they'll just look at the top line.
It is because it's you're calling it revenue, but it's more than revenue. It's very high margin profit in a business that doesn't make any money, right? Like, aren't there? Maybe they like just squeezed out barely last quarter,
they
but
surprised to the upside and only lost like, I don't know, millions of dollars or tens of millions instead of more.
So they don't. Yeah, I think that when people there's like when we get these bubbles, right? Everybody ignores it, and then there's like an aha moment, and then people go crazy, and then they way over project what's going to happen. So I think at some point there's going to be an aha moment on base. People are going to say something like, wow, if literally one app can do this and juice the earnings by this much, what's going to happen 10 years from now when there's 1,000 of these apps, right? Like, you want to get in before everybody starts going like full R word on stuff, right? You don't want to
Redacted.
you want full redacted on everything. You want to be in the middle of that, being like, oh, I'm trying to buy NVIDIA, and God, I said NVIDIA at $500. You should have bought it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your long-term thesis. I just don't think that the next quarter is going to be the one that is the one where people realize the earnings power of base chain.
All right, so is next
Can we
quarter
get into it?
Yeah, let's
Get
get
into it.
So, Friend.tech gonna bring in the normies?
Should we give a quick?
First, we
should
got
we
to
give a
rebrand.
quick?
It just started, I know, but we
Okay.
got to rebrand it.
Wait.
Terrible name.
Should we give like a quick
is
overview
Friend.tech?
of what
I'm
the
with
heck
Marty.
this is first?
Hold on, say
Yeah,
what
we
Friend.tech
definitely
is.
should.
Who wants to lead into what Friend.tech
Give them
is?
the 1 minute version. I think most people listening probably know of it, but maybe.
No, I bet you most people have
All right,
no
what is
idea.
No. Like Friend.tech is the hottest new crypto app, and that's kind of doing it a disservice. Like, its growth has been insane for like a crypto app, because most crypto apps suck.
It's like saying it's an AWS app.
Yeah, it's
But
it's a
also
terrible sales
with
pitch.
how quiet it is, that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
It isn't saying a lot.
Well, let's talk about what it is. It's basically Twitter, but not really. It's basically a private chat that's connected to your Twitter, but the kicker to it is that people can buy shares of you to get into that
this is what's unique
private
about it.
chat, right? So this launched, and a bunch of Twitter celebs kind of opened up a Friend.tech account, and their followers immediately started speculating on their shares,
Buying
right?
their shares.
And we ever thought like, wow, what's a share of Kobe worth, right? Turns out a share of Kobe is worth like a lot of money. Kobe may be the most popular crypto influencer, but there, I don't know if you guys know a trader named Ansem, right? Very few people probably know who Ansem is. I don't know if he's got like 100,000 followers or 50,000 or whatever. He's made 40 ETH in trading fees in the last 5 days.
Yeah,
It's like $100,000.
each of Ansem's shares are worth 1.5 ETH right now.
1.5 ETH per
let's
share.
clarify how he's making money. So when you buy a share, 10% of that goes to a pool. Half of that pool goes to Friend.tech. Half of that pool goes to the person of the shares that you're trading. So whether you're buying or selling, that person gets 5%. So you can get 5% of, or Steven will earn 5% to $10 when you buy his share on Friend.tech. And as you buy more, as people buy more, there is a curve. So, at, let's call it 4 holders.
Call this a bonding curve,
It's
right?
a bonding curve, right? Exactly. So maybe the price is $10 at 4 holders, but if you get up to like 60 holders, the price of the shares could be something like, I don't know, $1,000. Let's call it. And it's a pretty steep bonding curve. And maybe this is one of my first beefs with it is that, if you want millions of people using this app, if 100 holders cost someone $2,000 to buy the incremental share, maybe it's not a good curve to let everyone play. I went to go buy some of our friends. I think Hoffman was going to cost me like $800, $900, and I only bridged over $500 to tinker around.
Wait,
What?
did you see the chat?
No, what's a
Oh
chat?
no,
say?
our text chat.
No.
Hoffman just messaged us.
Yeah,
he's
he bought a
he's
bunch.
buying up all my shares.
I thought you guys.
He just bought like
I thought you guys saw this.
10 shares of me.
Oh, he bought 10 shares?
He's cornering the market. Okay, I just launched this Friend.tech account, I don't want to promise any of you financial gain,
David,
by the
I
way,
might
but
dump on you. Sorry.
David is going to dump on everybody. Apparently, David's buying
How do
up
I
all my
counter
shares
this
right now.
trade?
Son of a bitch.
So Adam Snyder just bought some. Adam Snyder's in the chat. Yeah.
I mean, they're really cheap in the beginning. They're like $2 for like the first
But this is
share.
so this is a really cool example to explore through, because how does this play out? And like when I'm buying a share of you, what does that fucking mean? I'm playing the skeptical person right now.
No, it's good to play the skeptic because everything in crypto is a scam. Let's just call it like it is. And I don't mean
98%.
everything. I mean
98%.
99% of things, and 1% is really, really great. But that's just the way it is. So this has been fascinating to me because I've seen like really good takes on the bull and bear side about this, and I think both of the takes are correct. This is both kind of a scam, but also it's tapped into something, and I think this will 100% be a thing. I'm not convinced if Friend.tech is the final iteration of that thing, but like I think this is a thing. I've actually long believed this will be a thing. Somebody in the chat actually
when you
commented.
say this will be a thing, we're specifically speaking to the piece of ownership of
I'm talking
humans.
about the financialization of humans.
Yeah, you're talking, that's what you what
Yeah.
you like about
Now,
it.
I'm not saying it will be a good thing. I think it will probably mostly be a bad thing, but it'll be one of those things that humanity just can't help
I think
but
it's an
doing.
unquestionably bad thing. It's a terrifying thing. I hate everything about it.
Well,
Change the name and just don't even do it is what I think.
I want, because I know, Steven, you're bullish, and I want to hear that bull case before we even start poking holes.
Let's get the hard bull.
But like, I want you to describe why you like this, and I want you to describe
And then
whether
I'm gonna
whether
poop on
you
it.
like this or you like the idea of this. You know what I'm
okay,
trying to say?
this is a brand
same
new.
though, right?
This is a brand new tech, right? The first time somebody rolled out a computer, it looked like a piece of shit. And like, what did everybody say? They said, "Oh no!" Even Bill Gates, I think, was like, "Well, nobody's ever gonna want one of these, right?" Like, people have like a hard time seeing past the first prototype and seeing where something goes. Damn chat! Stop making
I gotta
stop making me laugh.
looking at that.
And I think that it's easy to look at a new tech and kind of hate on it because you just see it for what it is. And what it is right now, from like a technical perspective, sucks. It's literally just a chat where you message, and the app is slow and barely functions.
And you pay hundreds of dollars for the privilege to like participate in this thing.
Okay, but imagine
Yeah,
it's
don't
like
you have to do something called bridging?
no,
Yeah.
you don't. It takes care of it for you. Thank God.
Like to like even participate in this at all, you have to be like
Imagine
kind of crypto
explaining-
native.
Imagine
You have to have
explaining
like
that to
you have
somebody.
to have ETH. Like anyway,
But
like
this is like you guys like describing people buying something on the internet in like 2001.
Part. I agree. They're gonna evolve. This is another iteration. There was that previous one that raised over $100 million. What was that?
Big
Cloud?
Cloud. They
BitCloud,
rebranded
then-
DSO.
But then they rebranded.
But
and-
BitClout was obviously dumb from the get-go, and everybody called it out as being dumb, and it ended up as being
but
dumb,
the part
and it
you
failed.
like about Friend.tech is what they pioneered.
Well, like Magic Taxi pioneered what Uber did, and nobody uses Magic Taxi.
But
anymore.
you like that part of it, right?
I think that
You like the financialization of humans.
no, I don't. I don't like the financialization of humans from a moralistic
You
perspective.
want to buy me.
But doesn't it feel
Cheap.
inevitable to you?
Yes, it feels like so. From the moment we put the like button on Facebook and we put follower counts on, what we've been
Yeah.
trying to do is ascribe some sort of value to ourselves online.
Yes. So this
And-
is just a more direct
Yes,
version
what is
of
the
that.
ultimate assignment
So
of
it's the
value?
ultimate
It is
version
a
of that.
price assigned by the
But
market.
what, if I'm not mistaken, what you like about it is that now the creator has something real to gain, something substantial to gain, and it feels more fair to you. for
There's a-
the
there's a
creator.
couple
like,
things
because you're
here.
buying me
There's a
anyway.
couple
Like,
things here.
like the actual creator is still sort of susceptible to and at the mercy of the same shit. Like, getting likes is the same as buying my key. Like, it is
Yeah.
the same problem, the same addiction all over again in a different version. But how is that different than like setting up a Patreon and saying like support my channel?
For one thing, you can't invest in somebody in a Patreon. Like Patreon
There's
doesn't
no upside.
like
There's no
some,
long-term ownership.
there's no speculation in Patreon,
Yeah.
right? You can't
So
be
we get to
rewarded
gamble.
for
Humans get to gamble.
Yeah, like people want to be like, I found the next Mr. Beast before he was Mr. Beast.
And that's what DSO BitClout was the excitement.
Yeah,
was,
but
right?
their execution was dog shit. It was terrible.
Okay,
and
why
it was a scam.
and why do you like this execution better?
For one reason, like BitClout.
Why were you not so excited about them?
It was
When
it was an obvious VC cash grab with the way they did it. They just gave everybody shares. They gave everybody an account, no matter what they asked. It was just designed to be dumped. Nobody had any incentive to do anything. It was a dumpster fire. It was a
I don't know if that's true.
An
I
utter
agree
dumpster
with
fire.
the rest, but the incentive to do something when you've raised $50 million, $100
No.
million
The users.
Okay.
The users.
All
Like
right.
the platform is nothing without the users. Like every crypto Twitter guy I followed was like, "LOL, thanks for the free money, you VC scam artist."
Right.
And then they were like, "I'm dumping." Like
Right.
it made no sense. Like this to me is a logical iteration of what already happens in like certain platforms like OnlyFans, like Patreon.
Yeah, let's talk about the creator angle from this. So like,
Yeah, let's talk about the good first. Like imagine you're a musician, right? One of the most brutal parts about being a musician is like, and it's better these days, but like in the 90s, like you had to have like a producer like walk into some club in LA where you were playing and be like, "You're going to be a star." And that person just made you a star. And if you didn't have that, you had no distribution, right? And you had no chance. And then we got to the point where stuff like SoundCloud and Spotify existed, right? And now you have distribution, but discovery is still a problem. Once you kind of put this like speculative layer on top of it, you now can solve the discovery problem. Like if people are financially motivated to be like, not only do I love this person, like people already wanted to tell everybody about somebody that they loved, and now they can be in early and profit. Like imagine finding a new artist and you and 100 other people have found this person. You're the only 100 people in the world and you're in this group chat and you guys are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how sick you are. I bought you for $1. We all love you. I don't even care about the money, but also your dollar, I'm going to make 1,000x on this." Everybody's going to be promoting that like crazy. There's a built-in incentive to discover people. And like people's share prices will go up. Like the marketplace is going to start finding people like that. Now, I'm not saying this isn't going to produce a lot of horrible results because it definitely will. But I think that part is very interesting to me.
It's interesting because like if I see that my two friends that I trust are buying shares of this in this kind of interactive app, I might be able to discover them too. And you might get the exclusive content like you do in OnlyFans or Patreon.
Yeah.
But then you also get the upside.
I mean, when I look at this, it's really simple for me. I think these things start out as like just absolute bullshit always. But what I think the tech can evolve into is just a better way for the creator economy to reward itself for its efforts. So musicians, artists of all types, podcasters, whatever it is you want to do, just general like YouTube creator, YouTube vlogger, whatever, like a Benjamin Cohen jumping on here in the early days and saying, support me, here's my videos or whatever. Like that's exciting for them and for you.
Yeah, and I like
you like the idea of buying a piece of this person's content. I don't think of it as like, if I'm being honest, it's not like you're buying the person.
No, it's
obviously.
a synthetic asset.
You're buying
of that person.
You're buying the upside in the work and the impact that you think that they'll create with their brand.
Yes.
So you're buying a piece of their brand, and the creator economy. Ultimately, what does that mean? It's the creator is the brand. So in a world where like a podcaster or a YouTuber is the person creating the content, and you get to buy a piece of the channel, imagine you're getting to buy a piece of Benjamin Cohen's YouTube channel. That's the way I look at it. And I think that can be very exciting on both sides of
from
the
a creator
equation.
perspective.
On the good side of it.
Yeah, and from a creator perspective, you're like, wow, all my earliest supporters are going to get upside. They're kind of financially motivated to promote me.
Yes.
Where in another situation, you're not. It's just kind of like, like a typical referral is like, hey, you should check
I
out this podcast.
also love that part.
So
I do
hold
love
on,
that
because
part.
like this is a show called Alfalfa where we like talk about the money aspect of things as well. Like I'm hearing you guys when you talk about this in esoteric fashion, you're talking about the theme of like helping the creator economy. I'm talking about Friend.tech.
Yeah.
Like Friend.tech is not going to win, in my opinion. Like Friend.tech is going to be a flash.
All
in
right,
the
you want to
pan
know
for
how to
me.
make money off this thing?
Let's talk about that too. Like
Copy paste
Well-
it and give 25% of the
Look,
shares.
this is an evolution of NFTs.
Hold on. Why,
right?
I'm on team, no Friend.tech here. So why do you think this isn't it?
Well, for a slew of reasons. Like, first of all, I think like you can have the right idea and you can just be too early, and that's okay, and that won't win, but like that will sort of help kick the can down the road to the ultimate solution, which is maybe what this is. I think that's fine. I think also what is not compelling about this is like, using Steven's example, like say you're a musician, like you do reward the first 100 users at a low price, but that bonding curve like also eliminates any other users. Like at this price point, like you can't buy in to Steven Cesaro musician who we like after the 100th user, because it's like now it's $1,000. Like nobody can buy that.
Right.
So like the bonding curve is an elimination for me from the outset. I think that the creators should be able to set their own price instead of having a bonding curve.
Okay,
baked in the protocol.
you're looking at this too narrowly. First off, like it's like literally, I don't even know if it's a beta. It's basically like an alpha product, right? It's not hard to imagine like a future iteration where creators are given like more leeway to adjust their number of shares, the exact curve they want, to dilute people, to issue more share. Like I'm not so worried about that. I think people are too bearish on the bonding. Like the idea is sort of like, oh, the bonding curve sucks because like these people buy it for $2 and then the price goes up 1,000x and then everybody dumps it to zero. Because
Right.
we look at it through like the NFT model where you're like, oh, now you have a fucking JPEG and it's just a JPEG and you lost everything and you just want to go home and cry, right? If Taylor Swift signs up for this thing and like her shares go to like 20K and people bought it at $100, they're like, wow, I am dumping, and it jumps down 97% to like $1,500 or $1,000, or it's probably like $800. Like, are people going to be like, oh my god, I lost it, and everybody leaves and nobody buys it?
And
Or
they're
a bunch
gonna
of
buy it
people are going to
back.
sit there and be like, wait, Taylor Swift is like giving me tickets and talking to me in the chat for like $800. I'll buy that, and then
Yeah,
people
but-
buy that, and the price goes back up.
Okay, so what you've identified there is something that I agree with, which is not Friend.tech. It's like token gated content. I agree with that.
Yes.
I agree with like these like big themes, like token gated content. I like the Web 2 login. I like that. I like the
Yeah.
what's it called, the PSA or
the
PM
progressive web app.
progressive
Yeah,
web app.
PWA.
I like that to avoid Apple's 30% tax. Like I like some of these things that Friend.tech utilized, and those can be iterative towards the ultimate outcome. But like this to me doesn't feel like
Whoa,
the one.
hold
where
on,
Taylor
hold on,
Swift is
hold
gonna
on, hold
be
on.
charging $30K per.
Do we all agree that in this realm of sort of social media apps and everything, like the magic formula is like just network effects? Like
Yes,
how many products
generally.
do we use that suck, but they just have like enormous network effects, and you just can't escape the black hole of that. The ability to build a moat, especially in crypto, is probably going to be enormous because nobody else is going to go into the space because it's crypto until it's maybe too late, right? So by the time Friend.tech starts getting attacked by like a Facebook or somebody who wants to actually go into the space, like the space is probably so developed and they probably already have like an enormous amount of users.
Well,
And
I
even
just
if their
think,
product
like,
sucks, they could build new features for
You
it.
brought up the name Facebook, and I think Calcium asked it in the chat. He said like, what happens when Facebook?
Facebook
rolls
would
out
never
something like
launch this because like they're going to be like, oh my god, we're going to get sued for issuing securities. Like our Friend.tech shares,
X might.
they, like Friend.tech already rebranded
about,
shares as keys, by the way, because people were like, I'm selling shares of myself. I'm selling shares of myself.
Well,
I'm
that's
giving
smart
I'm giving a
rebrand.
percentage of sales of my shares to my and they were like, these are not securities.
No, those are keys.
These are keys, right? So you think Facebook wants to touch that? Like I don't think so. By the time they do, it'll be like a multi-billion-dollar industry with like much more clarity, I think.
I mean, the title of our episode is like, is this the app that takes crypto mainstream? Do you guys believe that this is the app that's going to take crypto mainstream?
I think you're going to see like a crazy. I think I'm an incentives guy, right? I'm very Charlie Munger in this, right? The incentives I see random Twitter influencers making $100,000 in 5 days with like 60 or 70,000. You think that like people with millions of followers aren't going to look at that and be like, wait a minute. How much? It's the same. If these people shilled JPEGs that were worthless, this is like a way easier bridge to cross. It's just like, oh, you're interacting with your friend. You're selling like a gated group chat, and they're gonna be like, why are people paying for that? And they're like, well, they are. Here's the proof. Here's the millions of dollars people have paid. Like it seems like only a matter of time until like a Logan Paul signs up.
So
FaZe Bank's already signed up. Like we're already starting to pull in
I agree.
actual celebs.
Let me give you a very right tail risk and a very left tail risk of this situation. The first one is what you mentioned. A Logan Paul signs up because he needs to find the money to pay off the people he scammed
I don't
off
know
his
if he will though. He's
NFT.
already hurting.
He's pretty
from
buried
his-
on the crypto zoo.
He's
so
already
maybe he's a
hurting.
bad
Yeah,
example.
but let's say someone like that.
How about his brother?
Let's call him like a
Where's
mid-tier
his brother at?
influencer
Okay.
with like millions of followers.
Logan Paul should sign up and just donate all of the proceeds of his like token sales until he pays off crypto zoo holders. He'll still make millions after that. It'll generate
Yeah.
people to follow him. Seems like the easiest solution ever. You're
I always
welcome,
confuse
Logan.
the brothers. I don't know. They're
You're
all
welcome.
the same to me.
I just don't think it matters because I don't care.
2 core questions here. Yes. Is this the one that brings, is this the app that goes mainstream, that comes to the mainstream? And how do you play this? Like, this is Alfalfa at the end of the day. Like, where's the Alfalfa for me?
Yes.
Like, I want to know that.
Okay, there's 3 ways to play this.
Okay.
One, so by the way,
Don't say I have to create a profile and sell my soul.
no.
Okay, thank you.
Do you guys remember the crypto exchange BitMEX? Arthur
Yes.
Hayes' exchange
Yeah.
already exists. Somebody's already built. This is one of the cool things about these open protocols is people can just build stuff on top of them. Somebody built Friend.tech, which is basically just BitMEX for. So you can basically trade anybody, like you would trade coins already. So because of the way the bonding curve works, like if you find people kind of early on, like you can make enormous gains, like kind of like we saw in the NFT world. So that's one way to make money is you can actually hunt and speculate on people who you think are going to kind of blow up, and maybe that's a scalp or a long-term
Can
thing.
you short on Friend Mex?
That's a good question, actually. But it's only a matter of time until there are. I know somebody's already launched some sort of like very beta perps thing.
I'll short the world.
I think it's only a matter of weeks until you can just short people.
So
yeah.
you have 2 more things, and I want to give the alpha for what Friend.tech I think should do.
The
So
other
Brad,
play
give
that we
notes.
talked about is going long Coinbase because I think if the market has this. So Friend.tech
I like
made
this.
Okay, I like this one.
Friend.tech made like
I don't wanna
eight.
touch
I think they made
Friend.tech.
like $800,000 in like profits, basically. High margin revenue yesterday. That's a lot of money for one day. A large chunk of that goes to Coinbase. Base has been doing more fees combined than like Arbitrum and Optimism, like kind of blowing them out of the water. So if the market sees this and extrapolates, like, wait a minute, this is one app. This is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
That could be like a bit of a hockey stick moment. So I think Coinbase is a way to play that.
Okay.
And I think a derivative of that is that this is all built on the Optimism stack. I think a lot of this stuff is accretive to the OP token. It's been one of the strongest tokens in crypto. Had a bit of a sell-off today because it hit like a pretty significant technical level, but like that's been a very strong token, and that's probably an interesting play. But I think the more direct play is to either just grind the trading of people, which I don't want to do personally, or just buy Coinbase.
And one
Or by Optimism was your thing.
and one
Or just buy
question-
ETH, because ETH ultimately gets all of this, and you don't have to pick a winner.
And one question before that, Nick. Who's behind Friend.tech?
It's a developer called Racer. We don't know if it's a he or she. We don't know.
Pseudo Anon, like people know who they are, but like they're
Just
they're
one
Anon.
person?
No,
Well,
like
I'm
apparently
sure
a lot
team.
of people know them.
I listened to
I
Van
think Paradigm,
Spencer
who invested
on
them, in them,
Bankless
knows
yesterday,
them. Yeah.
and he sounded like there was another team member that he's familiar with. Doesn't know where they live. Doesn't know if it's he or she or they or whatever. But that, and he mentions on the Bankless podcast that like they may not live in the U.S., so they may not care what the regulatory issues are. Now, you as someone selling your shares may want to care
Yeah.
which country you reside in. But anyway, yeah. Apparently, they have some notoriety. They've had some failed apps, but they it sounds like from what I heard from him, they seem to go for these consumer-facing apps.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I was
let me
just curious.
let me give an alpha take what I think Friend.tech should do, and then I'll give you the left tail risk for Friend.tech.
Oh, cool. I'm gonna tell you what they should do next as well.
I think they should kind of like be the synthetics of perps, which is like an underlying protocol that has like, a million front ends that can hook into it and somehow make some money, charge some fees. So Friend.tech is not just the interface that you just went through the onboarding process.
Which was awful.
Awful.
Even though it had the
I
positives
strongly
that Eric
disagree.
pointed out.
I
think
thought
it's
the
the
onboarding
best
process
we've
was pretty
seen,
good.
but not still great for normies. But I think if they kind of like opened up the protocol and let people trade it and let people create financial derivatives off of it, create their own front end, maybe create something that looks like DYDX.
They already can do that.
You can do that now?
Dude, the developer Fubar has already released a way to like wrap your tokens, and people have like Uniswap LPs of their tokens, like they're farming their own token.
Yeah, more like is there an API or something that like I can build a front end that's different than
this
Friend.tech
is what FriendMex is basically like. You use these assets, right? You're talking about.
But when you buy on FriendMex, does it up the price on Friend.tech?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
This is the beauty of crypto, man.
So
It's all
that-
open.
That is actually pretty interesting, and that's one way you kind of go into the blue ocean of like not a bloody competitor, competing against the apps, and you gain that network effect. Is like, cool. You think the UI should be better? Just build it. Here's the users already. Here's the assets already. Here's all the underlying protocol, and build onto it. Add your fees that you want onto it, and hopefully, like there'll be 1,000 UIs of this if you want. Here's a small left tail risk. A long time ago, maybe like 6-7 years ago, I raised money for a product that was very reliant on Apple's iOS system. Very similar to how Friend.tech relies on this very quick UI in which you can add to home screen and create what we call...
Create your own app.
Yeah, create your own app. It looks like a bookmark, but to the user, it's just like another app, and you kind of bypass the Apple App Store. And, me and the investors, we were very clear on like, hey, these are the risks. Let's go into it open-eyed. If that happens, iOS makes a small change. We could be out of business, but the profit was worth the risk. So we raised $5 million, took the $5 million from the investors, and 3 months into scaling users, we noticed in the they have like a test version of iOS, see what the developers are about to release into the iOS production. We're like, oh shit. They found a fix for this. And so it's very possible, this is left tail risk, that, iOS team may go to the Safari team and be like, you don't have to remove this. Let's just dump it 2 or 3 levels deep in the UI. And it makes the onboarding very difficult to make this like an app style feel. Doesn't necessarily mean it goes away. I mean, they might persist as a desktop app, but it's something I'm familiar with. They run in very tight, cycles when they realize that apps are bypassing the App Store. And if you don't believe that, go read the App Store guidelines, and you'll see some really like specific things in the App Store, and it clearly targeting specific apps. And so they're not afraid to do that.
And all it takes, I think, is like enough eyeballs getting on one thing for them to just be like, no more of this.
Because let's be clear, one of
but
the cool
app,
things about
the
this,
app does not hinge upon that. It's a nice
right,
feature that you're happy people are incorporating.
but they
into
are
it.
trading crypto on an Apple.
Right, but
device.
everybody in crypto is already used to not using their phone for everything. It's like a bonus. It's a thing that would help mainstream, but it's not going to literally kill the business of it, right?
I think Nick is right. I think totally right. There's no way that's going to survive.
Maybe they.
I agree with you. I think Apple will kill that.
DWAs, these types of apps
sure.
that don't require App Store downloads that generate a lot of revenue will not survive.
Yeah, but we're also going to have a battle at some point in the future with the likes of Apple. Like if like something like the Solana phone starts gaining critical
Apple's
mass.
been
and
having
there's-
that battle with everyone who even seeks to go outside the App Store anyway, so it's just a continuation of the battle that they already have.
It's a battle they
all
will
the
lose
time.
probably at some point, but not for some time.
Yeah. I think it'll require the highest court.
Yeah, I know. Ask Epic Games of like if you can win that battle,
Yeah.
and like no, they
Yeah.
can't.
Exactly.
All right, couple things real quick in the chat before we move on. Viking is saying what you guys are looking for is Noster. Do you guys know what Noster is?
No,
No.
I don't.
Interesting.
No.
Noster is like the decentralized social network you guys have talked about
that's
a
what we were
lot.
talking about
You can-
before.
yeah, it's a big favorite amongst like Bitcoin. To me, like the Noster versus Friend.tech thing is just so well illustrates like what people think that crypto's for versus what people actually use crypto for. Much in the same way that people aren't that interested in decentralization and privacy and possessing their own keys and everything, which is why I'm not like uber bullish on Bitcoin. Sorry. People are not interested in using social media and like just having possession of their data. Like the market shows that people don't give a shit about their data. Friend.tech enables speculation and gambling, which is why people like it. It's why everybody's using it. It's why they have like a way more users than Nostr does in a matter of days when Nostr's been out for years. Sort of the sad reality of humanity. It is what it is. Max says it's overrated. Idea is not that cool.
Yeah.
Well, the idea is cool, but the product's not good. Sure, every initial product is bad. Like the first airplane kind of sucked. Airplanes got better. The first computers kind of sucked. Got better. Like if you looked at MySpace and you tried to envision what
I don't know.
what like Facebook would come to. Imagine I showed you MySpace, and then I was like, "This is what MySpace is in 15 or 20 years or however."
But
you would have been like, "Okay, sure."
But that actually confirms his point. Like, you're not also bullish on Friend.tech. And I think that's the point. Is people are not bullish
Okay,
on
even if I
Friend.tech.
showed you the original Facebook, though, if I showed you the original Facebook, you still would have thought that is stupid
Actually,
and
I
lame.
thought the original Facebook was awesome, and I think that's why it blew up.
The original The Facebook.
Right.
Yeah, the Facebook
Yeah.
was
This is
awesome.
what I'm talking about. It was a thing that it didn't have a like button. You couldn't do anything on it.
But
in
life
spite
was
of it,
good before
in
the like
spite of
button.
it, people liked it.
Life was very good.
I
before
remember
li-
when the like
I
button got
remember-
created, by the way,
I remember
and people
pre-like
were
button days.
losing it.
Life was good.
Like people,
You had to
I
have like a
didn't-
college
I didn't
email
care how many
address.
followers I had. I didn't care how many
people
likes
didn't
I
like the
got.
like button.
I actually used to engage with people, and they engaged with me for the sake of like, how's Armand doing? Not for the sake of like, how's this do for the algorithm?
There was a time where people did things not for likes. It's
like,
kind of crazy to think
genuinely.
about. Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
Genuinely checked in with me. Yeah.
Oh my
no.
God, do you guys
That
remember the
is
poke? The poke button?
Yeah.
Oh my God! The
It's
poke was
ultimate
the
flirt,
the
dude.
poke was the
Yeah.
source of so many
Yeah.
awkward stories in college. It was amazing.
Oh, the flirt led to some
Oh, the poke.
escapades
Can
for
we
me.
can we talk about one last angle and then we can move on?
Yeah,
I
sure.
have one too.
Okay, so I want to talk about the financialization of people, and maybe in the context of the
Yeah, the
financialization
enslavement
of
of
everything,
digital beings.
and not made in the sense
Ugh.
of Friend.tech, but
We
is
should
this
just talk. We should just done this for our last.
Why
thing.
didn't we just talk about the enslavement of my digital self?
right? So like, is this inevitable? Because like Balaji said something one time that like stuck with me, and he said, right now, the way that we trade things is imagine an Excel spreadsheet with like a gajillion rows, okay, of all the things that you can buy in the world, and there's only one column. It's U.S. dollar. You can buy all these things with the U.S. dollar. And then you like take it a step further, and like we see with Uniswap, oh shit, I can trade like 1,000 assets with 1,000 other assets. And so he imagines that now we have a gajillion rows. We'll now take that out like 100,000 columns. Like you can now trade, you know, asset Z with and purchase it with asset N. And that made sense to me that that is a future, like especially with decentralized exchanges. So the question is like, is it inevitable that one of those rows or one of those columns will be a share of a person? And could you take that share of a person and change it back to US dollars and ETH? We can do that now, but maybe you can do that with other things. And will these currencies be like, I don't know, a greater float? Now, we're not talking about like countries buying oil and buying goods. We're not talking about that, but like, is that matrix a future? And we could talk about if that's dystopian or not, because it certainly might well be.
I have thoughts. Do you,
I
do
know,
you, do
I
you want
mean,
to?
it is very dystopian.
I mean, this is one of those things that I think is very bad, but also will definitely happen because it's like what people want. It's what the market wants. Everybody does want to value themselves in a particular way on the internet, and we currently use all these
I'm ready
stand-ins
for my
like
farm, dude.
likes or follows or whatever, and now you can just have a dollar value. Now you can just have a market-derived price, right? It's just the ultimate endpoint of all the shit we've been beating around, right, for decades. Like, this is the endpoint. It's
Okay.
just like, how much are you worth as a human? You're gonna have teenagers being like, "Oh, Becky, you're such a worthless little whatever. You're only worth $1, and I'm worth like $8." It's gonna be really bad.
A lot of us have heard of Black Mirror. There's a specific
It's very
episode
Black
that a
Mirror,
lot of
yeah.
people have seen, and there's a social score, and it follows like a protagonist through like the ups and downs and eventual like severe decline when everyone can literally upvote and downvote you. So replace that with keys or shares, and you have a bad interaction at the coffee store, and they like look you up, find you, sell your share because, well, you didn't have a smile on your face that morning. And so, like, is this a start to like a dystopian future where like
starting to
it
think,
turns into like a
like-
social score that is a dollar
No,
value?
wait. Actually, you go.
What if we're in the dystopia? As long as we stay happy, we'll be okay. I'm happy. Are you happy? I'm happy.
Yeah, because like everything.
I think
that-
we're already in the dystopia.
I think like,
You've achieved escape velocity though.
Well,
I
what you
think-
guys are describing is like it's important to somebody who wants to play that game, but that's only one game in the whole spectrum of life.
a lot
like,
of games.
Like I don't give a fuck
don't
about
give
that
a
game
fuck.
at all. Like,
whoa. But what Nick's talking about is a game you can't opt out of.
Right.
And in Nick's game, this could actually be the free
Yes.
market solution to it. Like
hold
imagine there
on.
is this communist controlled social credit score. And Nick's credit score is like 5.
Yeah,
but
you
there
can't
exists
opt
this
out of this
crypto
one.
market
So
for
hold
Nick's
on, that's-
credit.
that's
and he's like a
different.
97.
like we're talking about Friend.tech, and then you go to this other
Well,
thing. Like
yeah.
that's what that's what he's
they
talking
evolved
about.
the conversation
so
here.
I think I think China has experimented with this like
Yeah.
social credit score, and that feels really intrusive. Like
No, dude,
Because you
you can
can't opt
literally
out of it,
prevent
like,
somebody from getting on the subway.
Imagine the week your family member dies and you are a shell of a human being and you're like a piece of shit to everyone without even realizing it. Your social score dumps 90%. And now when someone interacts with you for the first time or decides to do business with you, let me look up his share price on Friend.tech to see if he's a good human being.
you can't get a loan, you can't start a business, you can't.
But
Bro, you
Friend.tech
can't
would
get
be
on a
good
plane
because
or a flight.
if Friend.tech is done well, if it's done truly decentralized, then it couldn't be manipulated. It would be like Nick's actual free market friend price.
So
whereas
someone
like
should buy the dip, basically.
Yeah, and the government one would be trying to manipulate Nick's share down. Like if he said something negative about the party, they would manipulate his price into the ground because it's centrally controlled.
Well, look, this is the
I like this.
decentralization argument in
Yeah.
a nutshell, right? But like the moment that you have any centralized power having a finger or toe in this, it's game over. It's complete game over. I mean, it's like, yeah, you would. I mean, what they're doing in China already, like
I
they're
agree,
preventing
but-
people from getting on the train, getting on the flight, controlling their whereabouts. It's true enslavement.
So do we accept the least dirty shirt, which is like this app that's market based versus like in a possibly inevitable centralized one?
Yes, in a world where everything has like succumbs to the Black Mirror social credit score, whatever number they do to value you as a human.
Why can't
having
we,
like a
why can't we do
true open
better?
market?
Why can't we do better? Like, why do we have to keep going down this road of this? So I'm currently reading The Soul of Money.
Oh, you're in the book club.
Yeah.
Should we shout out the Alfalfa book club real
Yeah,
quick?
so that's what I'm doing.
Oh.
I'm reading The Soul of Money. So our Discord community, our community in general, which lives in our Discord and YouTube for the most part, I believe, I don't remember. Yeah, so there's a channel called, it's a thread.
Novel thinkers.
Novel Thinkers.
Book
It's a
club.
book club. And the first book that kicked this whole thing off is The Soul of Money. And I saw the conversation happening, and I was like, okay, what is this? What is this book all about? I looked it up. I was like, okay, this is interesting. It has the promise of being a book about money with novel takes that aren't covered in like psychology of money and some of the more like self-help, just think abundant and you will get richer type books.
I love those.
So anyway, I
books.
started. Those are good. Those are fun books. I started it on the car ride here and everything. And I don't know. I'm just in a place right now, in particular, not just because of that book, but who I always have been, especially when we talk on this podcast, is like, is this really the right way, man? Like, and by the way, if you want to join the book club, you should. It just started.
Plug it, baby.
Yeah, I'm plugging. Hop in Novel Thinkers. But yeah, like, does it really need to go like this? Like, we have a choice. Like, I just sometimes wonder, like, why do we sometimes get stuck into these ways of being? And maybe we should start transitioning because
Yeah.
I think, you know, like, the idea that we wanted to talk about next is like maintaining your sanity in this world. And
in
it's
this world
becoming
where you have a
more
value.
difficult and difficult. And now we're in this situation where people want to assign value to me and buy my shares, my keys, and that is going to indicate the access I have in my life, the amount of money I make, the amount of just, you know, the list goes on. It's frustrating.
I mean, you already have follower counts. Like some people get really, I don't know, they get really into that.
Personally,
not
I
having them
opted
into it.
out of all that.
I like the
I
opt-out.
was a complete opt out. I got one taste of that shit and I was out.
You went for it for a bit, and then you're
I
like,
went for it for a long time. A long time. I thought I wanted to be this creator, I am creating right now, but it feels different because what I was creating for, man, there's such deep conversations here to be had, but it's like, is there a means to an end here or is this the end? Is constantly the question with everything that we do in our lives. Am I creating this content because it's autotelic and it's enjoyable in and of itself, or because it is to gain something? And I think that I wanted to gain certain things. I also did it genuinely because I love creating. It's like an art form, right? Especially a podcast is very artistic. To express yourself, to have this conversation, to prepare for it, to show up for it, to create a YouTube video, to write an article. I've done all those kinds of things. And at times, though, there is this outcome that a person desires. They either want money, freedom, fame, significance, and not notoriety, because I keep reminding myself and everyone notoriety is negative. Everyone uses the word notoriety in the wrong way. Notoriety is like notorious.
It's
It's being known for something negative, but it's significance. And like once I started to get a taste of this, I got this a few times where I got a taste and I got a taste and I got a taste, but then I got a big taste, which was this video that we did on this podcast that got clipped, right? And we've mentioned before where we put it on Instagram and it got all these views and I had all these messages in my inbox and it was nice, and I felt like I was helping, especially with that video, because it was like a helpful topic, and I felt like I was being a voice for women in Iran, and it was beautiful. But I realized that without realizing it wasn't conscious, that deep down, I did want followers. I did think that having followers had a benefit.
It's a feedback loop.
And all I realized is I don't care. I don't care at all. I would do this with or without followers. And I feel better showing up that way. And I totally let go of that. I had to get off social media completely for a while. Like now I'll check it. But for me, the sanity to shift into that was to get off social media. Like getting off social media has been one of the greatest things I've ever done personally for my sanity. And every day there's a new thing like Friend.tech, but I have to slow down and remind myself, like, is this worth my time? I don't know. Like I have to always check that. So,
Well, I know I'm losing my sanity because while you were talking, I had a little voice in my head go like, I wonder what I'm worth right now. And then I opened the Friend.tech app and I saw that a bot has already flipped me for a 700% ROI in an hour. So yeah, this is going to ruin me for sure.
well, dude,
and
it's
I will go insane.
We did a dopamine detox because we discussed not just social media, but all of those different dopamines being extremely worrisome and like incredibly unhealthy in excess.
Yeah.
And we were all in excess. And to now not just check like your followers and your likes and your comments, but to check your
Oh my
worth.
God. Is there anything
Your
worse?
worth?
Is there anything worse
No.
than just having your
No.
fucking
Your
dollar
fucking
value
stock price, bro?
as a human?
I'm not touching
It's
it.
so
I'm not touching it. You can't get me in this.
Oh
dude.
my God, it's
This
horrible.
whole thing is like
I can't
no
even bridge.
way.
We're not worried about you.
No way.
I'm still unsigned up. So
Oh Jesus Christ. Oh man.
All
Not
right, so
doing it.
like, anyone got any tips on as we wrap up? Like tips on staying sane in a world where you have a dollar value assigned?
yeah, stay
to
off
you?
Friend.tech, bro.
can I ask you guys,
Probably
like,
stay
with
off
this
Friend.tech,
prompt,
yeah.
like where do you guys feel like this like sanity or lack of sanity come into play? Because like where do you feel like the need to intervene? Like what are you protecting yourself against in like an actual sense?
Wait,
How do you-
why do you feel the need to regain your sanity? Like what is
Well,
actually
I'm asking you
happening there?
where is the sanity being lost? Because I'm a person who doesn't lose it. Like I never really even feel like all
Yeah,
the
we-
shit you
we
guys
know.
are talking about on the detox, the dopamine shit. I'm like, this
Everybody
doesn't even
knows.
affect me. Like all these things you're talking about on Friend.tech, like I don't even care. Like my stock could go to 0 or to 1,000, whatever. I don't care.
Well,
Like,
I mean, Steven,
just
when you
won't
walked
care.
in, you were talking about like you were trading, and you're like, man, it is like hard to feel a little sane when I'm looking at charts all day and trading. So like, what is that feeling? Is it a feeling? Is it like
It's
You're
dopamine overload. Like all these feelings, like they all trace back to the same damn place most of the time, and it's mostly too much dopamine, or because you've had too much dopamine. When you don't have it, now you have a deficit, and then your brain perceives that deficit as like something's wrong.
So that's like
something's wrong.
a meta definition of it. I'm asking you and you and you. I'm asking you
Yeah.
guys,
All right,
where do you feel it?
I'll tell you where I feel it is I have multiple active businesses and multiple investments that some require some management, some require not some management at all. And then you have your personal finances, and then let's include the personal life. We all have these things. And where I get to a point where like, am I going to lose my sanity is like, I don't know, am I making progress or am I just doing things? That's where like I get lost. And where I feel like, am I putting my time in the right place? Am I making progress towards my goals? And some days, there's so much going on. There's fires, there's opportunities, there's just like mundane admin shit you got to take care of that must be done. And I feel like, what am I fucking doing? Like, am I actually making progress? And so I'll skip to my solution a little bit, is that we have like a scorecard for our businesses, and I use like a weekly scorecard that is like, adjacent to my weekly goals, and each goal has a metric, that's assigned to it. I feel like it's pretty easy to do, to assign like a metric, and every Sunday, I just go through them. Saturday or Sunday, I go through them and I enter them in, and it's either yellow or green, still needs improvement, or I'm hitting it, and that resets me. It says, okay, we're making progress on these ones. We're not making progress on these ones. And at least I know where I stand. And with so much going on, it's sometimes helpful to know where you stand. And like, I'll pull another like Tony Robbins thing out. Like one thing that he taught that stuck with me is that, maybe happiness isn't the best term, but let's just use it. Happiness comes from progress. Like if you feel you're making progress, you feel kind of happy. And even when things are kind of like whirlwinding around you, if you can feel like, well, I made progress in my physical goals, like that makes happiness. So I don't know. I like to know where I stand in all of these things that I'm doing. And then I can like, say all these things I'm doing are towards goal A, goal B, goal C. And I get a little calmness around it. But it's when I don't know if I'm making progress because so many things are going on that like I just get fucking lost and a little weirded
The
out.
algo likes measurements. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
I don't know, Armand. Do you feel like, when do you feel not?
I mean,
sane?
I love. It's like you're hilarious, dude. Like I love it because like the whole thing, the fascinating thing about us four is that we're so different from a personality perspective. Actually, like we're very alike in our interests and our sort of like ability to hang out with each other, our humor, like all that stuff. That's why we're friends, right? But when it comes to personality, we couldn't be more different. And so like I always find it fascinating when Eric pulls one of these, like, I don't get.
He doesn't know that he's
like,
reached nirvana.
What are you talking about? Like, where in your life are you even struggling? Like, where you don't have
Define
sanity?
anxiety?
What does that mean? And I love
What
it because
is
it's like, I
sad?
think there's a couple areas for me where I think I've created that feeling the most. And I think it's because you should speak for yourself, but you strike me as someone who's achieved an ability to be very balanced, right? In your approach to how you deal with everything. You have very good, like, self-regulation. I'd be curious if you have more insights on this, but like your ability to self-regulate and pull yourself back from something when you've gone too far is better than most. So for me, I have an addiction, in a sense, an obsession with my career. I work really fucking hard, and I think about that work all the time. And that is rooted in an insanely high measurement of conscientiousness. Like, my conscientiousness is like a 97, 98% percentile, like higher than 98% of people in a room. And like, that means I'm very organized as well. So I'm militant with my organization. I'm militant with my industriousness and my ability to work hard. So everything has to be like a certain way. and I'm going to fucking crush it when I do it. And so like you come home and it's not really the place for that. And so like maintaining my sanity when I
Baby,
come home.
dog, everything,
Yeah,
yeah.
baby, dog, wife, slow down, be gentle, soften the edges. Like that's not really the place for that. And the other factor that I actually think is really deep and interesting is if you guys have all read Think and Grow Rich and you've looked at that work, and a core part of what drives human existence is this pursuit of money. And The Soul of Money talks about this as well, but Think and Grow Rich is obviously about this. And one of the drivers for men in particular, at least this is the way Napoleon Hill would talk, right? It's like 1930s men, and we were the producers. Of course, this is men and women now, but that people have a deep, 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 deep fear of poverty. And that the fear of poverty drives everything. And so I grew up in poverty for some years, and then it got better. And then I had to pick up myself up by my own bootstraps and become conscientious and become independent and go work to make sure that I felt security in my life, that I didn't feel this feeling of I don't have enough. But the reality is that guy, that little kid who's scared, is always there. Always there. I'm always worried deep down that it's all going to fall apart and then I'm going to be homeless.
Right.
It's just going to be like game over, bankrupt, go
That's
home.
how I wake up.
Yeah. So I think those two things for me require regulation and sanity checks. So the way I achieve those things, for me, I love the cold plunge. I love the sauna, in particular, the real wooden traditional sauna, although the infrared is great as well. And I've been really into tapping meditation lately, which I wanted to tell you guys about today. So tapping meditation is, and I want to pull up some notes on this to mention as well, but it's extremely effective, first of all. It's scientifically proven to be very effective for anxiety in particular and people who have PTSD. I'll try to pull up the stats
I
maybe
can't
while
It's
wait. I
interesting
can't wait
that-
to see what this actually is versus what I think it is in my head.
But it's interesting that Armands are like physiological in nature, like cold plunge, sauna. I'm sure working out for all of us is one of those things, but like
It's like the only thing.
Well, the
for me.
meditation
Only thing.
is, I wouldn't say it's physiological, although there is a physiological component to the tapping. That is
I'm curious to
interesting.
see if
I mean,
it's-
I
is it literally
love
just tapping?
meditating.
Literally, I imagine
No.
Armand just doing this.
tapping the third eye.
That's what I was picturing.
Yeah, well,
I'm
it's
curious
something
if
like
that's
that.
what this is.
It's
actually,
something like that.
I didn't want to spoil it by doing any actual research on this topic. So
No, but I'll give you this. In a large-scale study of 5,000 patients, they were seeking treatment for anxiety. They received either traditional anxiety treatment in the form of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the most popular and highest efficacy form of therapy in general for anxiety, with medication if needed, right? So they either did CBT with medication or tapping with no medication. An improvement was found in 90% of patients who received tapping therapy, compared to 63% of the CBT participants. Only 3 tapping sessions were needed before an individual's anxiety was reduced. 3, while an average of 15 was needed for CBT to show results. 3 versus 15. Complete relief of symptoms was seen in 76% of people who did the acupoint tapping, compared to 51% in the CBT group. These are people that did.
Okay, show us the tapping. Get to the point.
Just
Show us
describe
the
it. I
tapping.
have no
Tap.
idea.
Tap-
so
tap
download
for
the
me,
app.
Daddy.
Download the tapping app.
I need an
It's all
app
there.
to tap.
So
You can't just tap.
get
I'm out.
the tapping solution app.
That's,
Onboarding is terrible.
Onboarding is horrible.
Wow. You guys are funning
just,
this hard.
just tell us.
That better not be
Tapping
called
app.
like Tapio or
Get the
some
free
bullshit.
app. It's called Tapping Solution. It'll walk
Oh.
you through it.
Okay.
And there's different meditations.
Can you give us
It's-
you're going to give us the 101?
No, you guys are freaking out about the tapping part.
What is
It's
it?
it's just imagine a guided meditation.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then she tells you where to tap.
Okay.
So
as
you literally
are
tap
meditating.
yourself.
Yes.
Where are
Yes.
some of
But-
the places where you tap?
Give us
They're
the one or two.
Acupressure point. It's acupressure.
Like
right?
wrist?
Yes, wrist.
I got a couple places that would be
wrist.
effective.
Taint.
Taint, of course.
Taint, of course.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, I'm joking. It's an old alfalfa thing. Your forehead, your underneath the nose here, the chin, underneath the arms. Yeah, you just tapping.
Well, like a big part of meditation is just like awareness of your body. You know, like in a lot of meditations talk about like be aware of like where your body is in space. Like what is it touching? And don't try to like disturb it or change it. Just like where is the weight fall? Is it your feet on the ground? Is it your hand on the chair?
I think that's very good for anxiety and panic in
Okay.
particular. This is a little different though, and I can't quite explain what they're doing and why it works. But I mean, look at that
Does she
study.
give you a metronome to tap? Is it like 1 per second, or is it
No, it's
just tap
just
at your
tap.
own pace?
Yeah, just tap.
Wait,
At like medium pace?
Try it out. Try it out. In
Okay.
particular, if you've ever experienced anxiety. Try
I
it
got
out.
it.
can I
Yeah.
tell you a weird thing that happened to me today right before I came here? Where I was like, oh. So I went to like a chiropractor, and he was trying to figure out why my feet are all messed up and shit. And he was having me do stuff like where I stood on various size boxes and everything, and just like resisted like his push down. And like every position he put me in, it was like, yeah, it was totally fine, totally fine. And then he put me in one position where it's this, and I was like, okay. And then he did it, and then he tapped one finger on my forehead while he did it, and then like I collapsed. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? And then he did it again, and like I collapsed. He was just, all he did was like tap on my forehead, and then like suddenly I couldn't hold my arm up.
It's because your body's made of spare parts, dude.
Yeah, no, I was asking him with him. I was like, what the hell just happened there? He's like, oh, you know, it's like with acupuncture. And I was like, that was not a satisfactory explanation, and he wouldn't give me any more, and he just kind of
Like,
moved
show
on
me
to the
Chart,
next thing.
motherfucker.
It was so weird. So I feel like there's like, this has to be like a thing.
So in the study, is there like I forget what they call it, but it's like the driving factor. Did they isolate like why it helps anxiety, Armand?
I'm sure they did.
Um,
It's this combination of the meditation itself,
okay.
the release that it creates in the body, the acupoints. It's all the things. Take
Oh,
a
yeah.
look.
Matt
Look up the
S. in
study.
the chat
I'll actually
says,
link to the app that I use. It's called Tapping Solution.
he mentions there's lots of tapping therapy apps.
Yeah,
in
let me-
the App
let me just
Store.
link to the
4.5
one I
ratings
use.
plus.
Can't argue with the market.
No.
I'll never argue with the market.
But
That's
look,
not true.
I
I do
mean,
that
are you
sometimes.
going to argue with something that's literally the most effective? Here's that link. More effective than cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like if you sign up all this rage about therapy, right? Go to therapy, go to therapy, go to therapy. And it's 3 sessions versus 15 to reduce your anxiety. I mean,
I would
pretty
totally
remarkable.
buy that, like because
Remarkable.
for me personally, thinking about stuff, talking about stuff, meditating, none of this does anything for me. The only thing that like completely heals
like
me,
pickleball?
yes, is like physical exertion plus flow state. Like if you can do something where you exert yourself physically and get in like a flow state, like for me, that will reset anything for me, and it's just purely physiological. It's just like I can't reset just from thinking about stuff or meditating. So I would actually believe there's like something to the contact that like that works.
It's
I
really
totally buy
interesting.
that.
Before you start the tapping meditation, it asks you like where you're at, 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
I always get a 20% minimum reduction in my score afterward. And it says like if it didn't reduce, just let's go again. Like let's go another round.
How long do you usually do it for?
10 minutes.
Okay.
That's the other beautiful thing. Oh yeah, if I didn't mention that, that's the best part. Most of the meditations are like 10 minutes. And they have different ones, different guided meditations. But to wrap this, like is there anything else that you guys do? I'm curious to.
Well,
I mentioned mine.
You've never felt.
Well, I want to ask. I want to ask you guys because for me, it's a little different, right?
yeah.
Like I've been mad before. I've been sad before, right? Like,
But I
I've-
think the question for you is, how do you self-regulate and how do you turn gears quickly so that you don't lose your sanity?
so I've been in points where I probably should have tapped, like because I've like kind of like lost it before. I've definitely been there where it's like,
yeah,
oh,
you get riled up sometimes,
of course,
right?
And
yeah.
it'd be nice to like have a tool to be like, okay, now's the time where I should just do that. I think broadly where I land is I tend to have like a longer wick, you know, like before I lose it. You know, I have a longer wick where I can like be okay for a long time. And the reason why I can be okay is because like I have this like absolutist mentality about a lot of things where I say like, okay, how does this affect me? Can I solve it? Yes. And then how do I go about doing that? And then like I just pragmatically like work through the steps. And then
What if
that-
it's no?
and if it's no, if it's like a complete no, then I'm also okay with that because it's like this can't be solved. It's out of your power. Just
Okay, so
move on.
this is fascinating. So you see, where most people fall apart is in the mulling, and I use that term technically. Like they mull and they mull and they mull over the problem. And what you're doing, you're saying, is like you'll very quickly run through this diagram and determine there's something that can be done or not.
And even
if it can't, you remove the idea and you stop the mulling.
And I actually think that like that part is kind of easy because it's like black and white. But there's like the shades of gray that you mentioned earlier, which is like the workaholism. I have this ability to kind of like diagnose diminishing returns pretty quick, where I say like, okay, so what do you need to do to make this work versus like what can you do? And there's like an infinite number of possibilities that you can do.
Yeah.
But like, you know, some people can't turn that off. You know, like my mom is one of them. Like I think you guys are examples of that. But like I'm able to be like, well, yeah, that's like an infinite number of possibilities that you can do. What should we do in like a practical
So
sense?
where we might go through like 20 cycles of thinking that same thing, maybe you go through one or two and you kind of like settle in on one, like an answer.
Do you ever worry? Or like, did you guys remember that Seinfeld episode with the Serenity Now? Am I like dating myself here?
No, I've actually heard that quote. It was a George Costanza who like screams it. Like I just don't know the context.
So the gist of this episode is like his dad or somebody is like he's just enraged all the time, and then through some self-help thing, he just says to himself like, Serenity now,
baby.
and it goes away, and everybody's like, wow, he's so calm and everything. It's unbelievable. He just says these words and he's like back to normal. And then I think either like Kramer or George start like, I don't know, they start like a computer business or something, and they stockpile the garage with like a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I think it was George, because Kramer buys into this. And then like one day he just snaps, like he can't say it anymore. He's just like, Serenity now, and he just goes in the garage and destroys all the entire inventory.
I had my psychology of personality teacher. This guy was epic. It was a 500-person class. He didn't give a fuck about the grades. Like, you're all getting A's. I'm tenured. I don't give a fuck. So we're just gonna read Think and Grow Rich, and then we're gonna go through like the topics of it. But he gave us one tip. He said, if your mind is going out of control, just audibly say the word stop out loud. Like, doesn't matter if you're around people or you're by yourself.
Stop.
Say, stop. And your brain will actually shut it down, slow down, and it actually helps when you're in this like mind spiral. The other one, you mentioned this to me before, is the 4-7-8 breathing technique.
Oh yeah, that is very helpful.
Inhale for 4, hold for 7, breathe out for 8. That one is like 100% hit rate for me.
And don't forget about the new breathing that Huberman has really popularized as well. I can't remember the name right now. Do you guys remember? But you do a deep breath and you
inhale again.
You hold and you inhale again.
It simulates like a crying inhale almost.
So it's like a, and then
yeah,
right after. And you do that after you think you have taken the biggest breath you possibly can, but you find a little bit more to squeeze out, and then a deep breath out, and that is very effective.
Yeah, and shout out to Tom Nom Nom in the chat. Big fan of yours, my friend. Yeah, he mentions a Huberman podcast where he talks about mind-body connection. He talks about some of the meditation and breath work, specifically a podcast about that connection. And he says, there's a wonderful conversation about mortality in the face of a tough diagnosis. Let's see. Pilgart mentions, in my opinion, it's very hard to be happy and fulfilled when focusing and spending energy on things I can't influence anyways. Focus on your family, close friends, and community that I can influence, similar to what Eric was saying.
I wanted to mention this is like, I think one thing we didn't talk about as well is like, I find the prompt of like losing your sanity a little, overblown, because really like
I didn't.
Okay. Well, I also have like, I think a good fuse, right? Like it takes me a while to get like, and especially with people, like I can be pretty patient with people unless they like hit certain things. And then I try to resolve them as quickly as possible and in as calm a way as possible. But there are certain things that like will just occur that take over. But the thing that really, I think, causes a lot of people to lose their sanity is the amount of information. The information overload that exists today is, I think, the biggest problem for most people. So that's why I try to be very, very, very conscious of like the apps, the news, the Twitters and the X's, and like how much of that I take in, because how much of it is actually useful is what I try to ask myself. Like, how much of it am I actually going to use that progresses me toward my real goals? So I think that's an important distinction, because a lot of people feel a lot of that overwhelm today. Oh, I forgot, Nick, you have to be our guy. I was like, where are you going? Where are you going? Were you rapping? We'll wrap
right.
there. It was wonderful. And Steven, would you like to give us a little bow tie?
A little what?
A little bow tie. A little bow tie right at the end here.
But yeah.
I was going to mention that to you, but I was going to wait till after we finished recording.
I was looking
to mention
and
that to you.
I noticed.
Yeah.
I noticed. It's
Got
okay.
anything? Because if not, I'll wrap it.
No, I mean, I was gonna just like, for me,
Mm-hmm.
what I've noticed is that anything anxiety, like it manifests in the physical to me.
Mhm.
Like I've realized I used to think it was this thing that was in my brain and I could just think it away. But like for me anyway, it is literally like a physical manifestation. It's like an energy that's stored in me. And I don't know any way to get rid of it other than to sort of like physically discharge it.
Well, I'll tell you what. You seem lighter on your toes ever since you started twinkle toeing across the pickleball court. So there you go, brother.
Yeah, I know we talk about it a lot, but it is like saved my life to like
No,
have that like
I'm serious though.
reset every day.
Well, I'm serious because
I go to bed every night
it's the
feeling like
80%.
great.
We talk about that.
Yeah.
Eric and I have talked about that a bunch. It's the 80%. That documentary with Jonah Hill talks about it. Tony Robbins focuses the majority of his work on the physiology. So yeah, it's real. It's real for sure. You know, you just exercise.
Thank you for saying that.
Eat well. It's like it's a real thing. But I'll round it out by saying, please share. We had the last episode that we did on relationships and the itch, and that created a really great conversation in the community in our Discord. If you're not in the Discord, please jump in, share your thoughts on how you stay sane, and share the alfalfa and learn from everyone else. We love you guys. We'll see you next week. Anything you think we should know, hit us up in the